All right, Akim, Shalom, Shalom, all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Hawashai, Ba'ashim Makakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth and salutations to the sincere Akim and Akwathim. And listen, may the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Okwai. I'm back in here with another lesson. And Lord willing, as always, this lesson may be edifying. So, for today's lesson, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about character, and that character, you don't find it in textbooks. So when I say character, I mean different morals, values, virtues that Yahweh Shai essentially exemplified, right? So there are certain books, if you have like a zeal to read other books and so on and so forth. Like and I'm just kind of using myself as an example, and I'm kind of just stressing this point because I've cut back a lot lately. And so, for example, there was this one book I used to read. It was called The Hebrew Heritage of Black Africa. So basically, the book, it goes into the different customs, Israelite customs that you found amongst those tribes. Now, a lot of those books that you might get into, a lot of the information is extreme. It's very edifying, very, very edifying. I'm not knocking the knowledge that that the Lord has opened up my mind to in regards to this book. But what I'm kind of stressing more is the importance of character, because when you go through these different books, right, one of the things I've noticed is that you're gonna get a lot of factual evidence in regards to those different arguments that the author is trying to make. So, for example, one of the things I noticed in the book, for example, I'm just using this one as an example, is the fact that the Ashanti, one of the Western African tribes, they kept different aspects of the garments of the high priest, for specifically like the breastplate with the 12 quadrants, right? So I thought that was very interesting. Now, it's very, very useful information, but getting into a lot of these things, it can essentially, be detrimental, and I say that because it can lead to an individual becoming very, very prideful, basically. Like you kind of have all the answers, and purposely, sometimes I think the Lord will put certain have certain events take place in your life to essentially kind of keep you grounded, kind of keep you, near your feet to the floor, right? Because that's one of the things that I've noticed that knowledge can do. It can puff up, right? So I guess I'll start with a couple precepts. I kind of wanted to establish that point. I'm not knocking the information itself. The information is factual, and you can use it to edify, right? But the other aspect of it is when you go through these different books, you're not going to get information of how to exemplify character, morals, virtues, righteousness. You're not going to get that type of information out of those books. That's the point I'm kind of really trying to stress the point here, right? So I made a couple points. What I'll do is I'll start off with the book of Proverbs. Okay, so just bear with me. Sorry, it's 25, I think. Okay, this is Proverbs chapter 25, verse 16. And it says, "Hast thou found honey? Eat so much as is sufficient for thee, lest thou be filled therewith and vomit it." In the NLT, it says, "Do you like honey? Don't eat too much. It will make you sick," right? So, metaphorically, what we do, when we get into, these books, well, scriptures as well, but I'm kind of just touching on the other books, right? When we get into these different books, it's kind of, you eat and you digest the information with your mind, right? So, I think it's somewhere it says in Ezra about essentially devouring wisdom. Now, that character and that wisdom, you're not going to find that in those books. You're going to find a lot more factual information, not sort of the information that can actually help you and develop you as a character, especially the character of Ahawashai, and going into the accounts of our forefathers. You're not going to get that in those books, and it can be problematic to essentially neglect those things, neglect the importance of the character, right? Those books can essentially, it can lead you just to be essentially being puffed up. As a matter of fact, let me get that one too. Let me go to that one next. Or you think that you don't really, you don't need help, you don't need anybody, and you don't you know what I'm saying, like you don't have faults. That's another thing also. It can puff you up to the point where you don't think you have any sort of faults at all, right? Where was I going? Oh, puffeth up. I think that's First Corinthians 8. Okay, this is First Corinthians 8. I'll read it in the NLT. I'll start at verse 1, and it says, regarding your question about food that has been offered to idols, yes, we know that we all have knowledge about this issue. While knowledge makes us feel important, it is love that strengthens the church. In the KJV, it says, now as touching things offered to idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth, right? So the point really is that knowledge, it can lead to certain negative, traits, especially like taking in too much and taking in so much at once. And if I'm being completely honest, that was one of the mistakes I've made, right? So kind of want to see what what this word is for puffeth up. Hold on, let me just see this right here. So it says G5448. It says hold on, just bear with me. Fuziao. Okay, so here it says to inflate, to blow up, to cause, to swell up, to puff up, make proud, to be proud, to be puffed up, to bear one's self loftily, to be proud, right? And that's one of the things that getting into these things can do. It makes you feel like you're puffed. It makes you feel like you're kind of like on top of the world. You don't need anybody. I could do all good by myself. It kind of puts you into that. It kind of reminds me of that kind of mindset that a lot of these women these days have. That kind of independent woman mindset where they say to themselves and they convince themselves that I don't need no man. I don't need someone to cook for me. I could go to work and make my own money and stack my own bread and wash my own car and change my own clothes and this and that and the fourth. Like, that's the kind of spirit. And we know as young men, or as men in general, We're turned off by a woman that has that type of mindset. We don't have that type of mindset where oh my goodness, that independent woman is so attractive. You know what I'm saying? She gets all that, she stacks all those dollars by herself. Like, we don't have that type of mindset. We have a mindset, always strive to have a type of mindset like Yahweh Shai, and remaining like humble. That's one of the things that Yahweh Shai definitely exemplified and definitely illustrated, right? Yahweh Shai, I forget who he was talking to, that account, when the guy asked him, why callest thou me good? Because he really wasn't in that mindset of like kind of glorifying himself. He came very, very lowly, right? Like on a donkey, right? So, he didn't come like all decked out and all that kind of stuff. So, let me get that. Let me read that account here. Hold on. So this is Matthew chapter 19, verse 16, and it says, and behold, one came on. Oh, the title here, it says, the rich young ruler. And it says, and behold, one came and said unto him, good master, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? And he said unto him, Yahweh Shai speaking, why callest thou me good? There is none good but one that is, the Most High Yahweh. But if thou will enter into life, keep the commandments. Right? And I kind of like this account here because Yahweh Shai really and truly, he could boast, but he was kind of in that mindset of like, you know what, the Lord Yahweh is the one that deserves all the praise, right? He is really the one that truly deserves the praise. He gave credit and glorified his Father, like his scriptures say. I think he also said, be perfect as my Father in heaven is perfect. Like, he's always in that mindset of kind of glorifying his Father, right? Shifting that that I don't want to say attention, but shifting that basically you could say attention, not to not to make himself look like he's the guy, right? Make him, shift that attention. Like, there's another scripture that says also about, when you don't boast yourself, so to speak, and let someone else's mouth to esteem you, right? That's really the point. And that's something I've noticed that, getting into these different books, can do, especially if you're taking so much all at once, right? It's not healthy. It's not healthy, if I'm being completely honest, right? So, just speaking from experience, right? But, it's not to take away some of this information, because, the information can be very, very useful, depending on what it is, right? You filter it out, right? It can be very, very useful, to the church, and you can use it to edify the church. You can use it to edify the body. But, it's just to be mindful of the type of spirit that can come upon you, right? In the event when you do get into these different things, right? Not to take in too much all at once. You slow down. Basically, if you're having a meal, like a physical meal, you wouldn't scarf down the steak and the potatoes and the veggies, like everything all at once. Even as an adult, you take a little piece, you cut the steak a little bit, you put a little gravy on it, you have a little bit of mashed potatoes, you make sure it fits in the fork well, you eat that, and you take time to chew, you take time to digest it, right? You don't scarf down the whole plate. If you were doing that in a restaurant, that looks like bad manners, and what happens? You choke, right? So in the spirit, it's the same thing, right? Let's continue. Okay, I want to get another account, but I want to save that one for last. But I wanted to get something that Paul said that also I wanted to add in, because I'm not sure if I mentioned this point earlier, in regards to sometimes the Lord would deliberately put you in a situation when you're forced to exemplify character. Like, you might read about the precept, and then it might play out where You play out trying to act out this. I don't want to say act out, but exemplify those characteristics Yahweh Shai exemplified, or different examples of our forefathers exemplified, basically, right? So this is something I've been also meditating on in regards to the benefit of having a thorn, as much as it can be painful. But this is 2 Corinthians 12, verse 7 in the NLT, and it says, "And even though I received such wonderful revelations from the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, so to keep me from being proud," going back to that point of, loftiness, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger from Satan to torment me and keep me from becoming proud, right? So essentially what the Lord did, he gave Paul, it doesn't describe what it was, but he gave Paul this different thorn, whatever this could have been. Could have been environmental, could have been in the body, it could have been, I don't know, right? Just going based off speculation, right? Whatever the thorn was, it was kind of just done to keep him humble, keep him on the ground, so to speak. It's kind of like an anchor, like when a ship reaches the dock and they put the anchor down, keeps them, keeps the ship sturdy, right? From keeping the ship from essentially being taken too much by the waves, and you know what I'm saying? Taken too much by that turbulence, right? It's just helped to, keep Paul stable. And it's the same thing with us, if you really think about it. You might be subject to, another person where, this person might need help in some kind of way, so you need to exemplify this particular quality, whatever it could be. It could be in your body, I don't know. I'm just speaking from experience, right? And hopefully, it can be comforting and edifying as well. It could be a family member, it could be a parent, it could be a child, it could be, I don't know what it could be. It could be a number of things. It could be an environment, right? So, that thorn, personally, sometimes I think it's a necessary evil, as much as it can feel very, very uncomfortable. I'm going to be honest, right? So I want to get this account, to close off. So, in regards to character, just bear with me as I just get it real quick. Okay, so I'm gonna start at the top and then just read down. Okay, this is 1 Samuel chapter 25, verse 2. And it says, "And there was a man named in Maon whose possessions were in Carmel, and this man was very great, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, the wife of Abigail, and she was of good understanding and of beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings of the house of Caleb." Right, so let me get that word churlish. Hold on, before I continue. Just so we can get an understanding of the type of person, type of character we're dealing with, right? Churlish. Hold on. Okay, so it's showing me churl. So it says a peasant, one of lowest class of freemen, a man without rank, a freeman of low degree. It says a countryman, a fellow of low birth and rude manners. Oh goodness. Okay, so let's go back to the story. And here it says, verse 4, and David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent out 10 young men and said to the young men, get you up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name. And thus shall ye say to him that liveth in prosperity, peace be both with thee, and peace be to thine house, and peace unto all that thou hast. And now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now thy shepherds which were with us, we hurt them not, neither was there aught missing unto them, all the while they were in Carmel. Ask thy young men, they will show thee. Wherefore the young men find favor in thy eyes, for we come in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand unto thy servants and thy son David. And when David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all the words in the name of David, and ceased. Right. So essentially, David, they send his men to pass on this message, right? And it says, and Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master. Shall I take my bread and my water and my flesh that I have killed for my shearers to give it unto men whom I know not whence they be? So David's young men were turned their way and went again and came and told him all those sayings. Right. So they came back. So Nabal, having all this substance, he turned away, David's men, and it ended up being I don't want to say it ended up being a shit show, but the point is that Nabal had an opportunity, going back to what I was referring to in regards to substance, right? So here in this example, I was using an example of he had physical substance. So he had bread, he had sheep, he had cattle, and he had the opportunity to essentially do good to a godly man, and he didn't take advantage of it. He didn't capitalize on an opportunity, right? So he kind of let it slip through his fingers, right? Because that's the type of person he was, right? But his wife Abigail did the opposite, right? But it shows you the type of character that Nabal had. He didn't have the spiritual mind frame to be like, what, these men, these men you can use a little bit of assistance. Let me share the resources that I have, and kind of pass that on to them. Basically, right? And it shows. That's the point. That's I'm trying to hit. He had the opportunity to do good, but he didn't do it. He kind of like fanned his hand at the servants, right? So David was kind of like he got into that warlike spirit, right? And then eventually Abigail, she intercedes, right? And but the point really is that, going back to the character, he had a lot of substance. So we can be a person who has a lot of substance, knows a lot of things, right? But it don't really make much of a difference if our character is terrible. That's really the point I'm trying to hit the nail on the head, right? So I guess I'll just close off with this one. Let me go to James. James chapter 2. This is James chapter 2 verse 14, and it says, what good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith and don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and say, goodbye and have a good day, Stay warm and eat well. But then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? You see, faith in its by itself isn't enough unless it produces good deeds, and it is dead and useless, right? So faith is dead and useless if there is no good deeds to substantiate it. So Nabal doesn't have faith. He didn't actually take that opportunity to do good to David. And at that point in the story, David had a reputation, right? Because after he slayed Goliath, right? But you know, um, faith and works, it's important to have the works. That's the point I'm trying to hit the nail on the head, right? Going back to the essence of character, right? So, um, I guess I'll leave it there, but that's pretty much the point. Just not to neglect the importance of character, right? And that was just giving in terms of alms and stuff like that. But there's other fruits of the spirit you can also exemplify, of course. So, Lord's will, this was edifying. But just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Until next time, I say Shalom.